Hello, welcome back. The energy inside Oakwood Church that Sunday was unlike anything the congregation had felt in years, and it all centered on Pastor Claudia M. Allen, a voice many already knew for her boldness and her refusal to shy away from the issues that make others nervous. When she stepped into that pulpit, the moment carried its own weight. Oakwood is a respected institution, deeply rooted in tradition, and its pulpit is treated with the highest reverence. But Claudia didn't approach it timidly, nor did she settle into a cautious rhythm. She came in with a fire, a voice that carried authority, and a delivery that immediately drew comparisons to Pastor Jamal Bryant, the outspoken preacher known for mixing scripture with cultural truth in ways that inspire some and infuriate others. The moment she began speaking, people realized this wasn't going to be another routine sermon. She challenged the church directly, addressing not only personal faith but also systemic issues that shape society. Her cadence, her rhythm, her unapologetic tone, it all carried the weight of confrontation, the kind that makes some lean forward in excitement while others shift in discomfort. She asked questions that pierced the room. What good is the church if it only comforts the comfortable? What good is faith if it doesn't speak against systems that keep people oppressed? In those moments, it was clear why people whispered that she was having a Jamal Bryant moment. Her words carried the same fiery boldness, the same refusal to sugarcoat truth, the same belief that the pulpit is not just for comfort but for awakening. As the sermon continued, the reactions were split. Some applauded loudly, affirming every word with claps, amens and nods of agreement. They felt she was speaking to the heart of what the gospel is meant to be, a force that moves people to action, that refuses to remain neutral in times of crisis. Others, though, were visibly uneasy. Oakwood has long been a church that values order, dignity, and tradition. For some members, Claudia's delivery felt like a disruption of that identity, too sharp, too confrontational, too close to activism instead of what they considered pure preaching. That tension filled the room, and when the benediction came, the division didn't disappear. It followed people out into the hallways, into their cars, and eventually into the online world. Clips of her sermon quickly made their way across social media. Supporters praised her courage, hailing her as the kind of voice the church needs in this generation. They shared quotes, posted videos, and said her words spoke directly to their reality. Critics, on the other hand, accused her of copying Bryant's theatrics, of turning the pulpit into a stage for politics, and of risking the unity of a church that had always held its reputation for respectability close. The generational divide became especially clear. Younger Christians, especially millennials and Gen Z, rallied behind her. They saw in Claudia a leader who understood them, someone unafraid to acknowledge the struggles they live with daily, systemic injustice, cultural identity, and the demand for real change. Older generations, however, were less enthused. While some admired her passion, many believed her approach was too disruptive, too political, and too far removed from the traditional sacredness of preaching. For them, sermons were about personal holiness, moral discipline, and spiritual growth, not public confrontation. The church leadership found themselves in a complicated place. While no official statement came immediately, insiders whispered that some leaders were uneasy with the amount of attention the sermon was drawing. Oakwood has long been known for its ability to balance relevance with dignity, but Claudia's words threatened to tilt that balance. Should the church embrace this new boldness, or should it protect its traditional role as a stabilizing force? The answer wasn't clear, and the debate only grew louder as the week went on. Journalists, bloggers, and commentators outside of the church world started weighing in, framing the event as part of a much larger conversation. Was this Oakwood moment a sign that the Black church was shifting again, moving back into its historical role as both a spiritual and political force? Or was it simply a disruption that would pass, leaving tradition intact? To understand the weight of what happened, one has to look at the legacy Claudia tapped into. The Black church has always been more than a religious institution. It has been a cornerstone of culture, community, and resistance, especially during the civil rights era, when the pulpit became a place for justice, as much as for salvation. Claudia's fiery words echoed that history, reminding people that silence in the face of injustice has never been the church's true role. Yet for others, the world has changed, and they believe the church should now focus inward, nurturing faith without becoming entangled in social battles. That tension between activism and tradition came roaring to the surface at Oakwood, and Claudia M became the face of it, whether she wanted to or not. The comparisons to Jamal Bryant only fueled the conversation. Bryant has long been a lightning rod, celebrated for his courage, criticized for his theatrics, but never ignored. His sermons blend scripture with real-world issues, spoken with the intensity of a civil rights leader and the charisma of a cultural influencer. Claudia's sermon showed that his influence has spilled beyond his own church, shaping a new generation of preachers who believe the gospel must confront both hearts and systems. For Oakwood, a church known for tradition, this was nothing short of a cultural alarm. If this kind of preaching could happen there, it could happen anywhere, and that realization unsettled some even as it thrilled others. The truth is, Claudia M's sermon was more than a fiery moment. It was a spark in a much bigger fire that has been smoldering within the church for decades. The Black church has always wrestled with its identity, caught between honoring tradition and embracing progress. Claudia's message pushed that struggle into the spotlight, forcing people to confront what kind of church they want to be moving forward. For some, she represents the future, bold, relevant, unafraid to confront injustice. For others, she represents a dangerous drift away from the sacredness of the pulpit. But regardless of where people stand, one thing is certain: nobody walked away unchanged.